The hum of your fridge stops. The kitchen goes silent. Minutes tick by, and you realize this isn't just a flicker. The power's out, and with it, the safety net that keeps your food fresh. Milk, meat, leftovers, everything you just spent your paycheck on is already on a countdown to spoilage. Most people panic here. They open the fridge, poke around, and hope the lights come back before dinner. But here's the truth. If you don't act fast, you'll lose hundreds of dollars worth of food, and in a real crisis, you'll lose your safety buffer. Unless you know the survival hacks that keep food cold for not just hours, not just days, but weeks without a single watt of electricity. Here's the reality nobody likes to talk about. Your fridge, the one you rely on every single day, is shockingly fragile. When the power goes out, you've got maybe 4 hours before it starts creeping into the danger zone where bacteria thrive. Your freezer? At best, if you keep the door shut, you've got a day, maybe 2, before it turns into a soggy box of spoiled food. And let's be honest, blackouts aren't just rare inconveniences anymore. They're happening more often, lasting longer, and hitting harder. Extreme weather, cyber attacks, grid overload, it doesn't matter where you live, you're one storm or one bad day away from your fridge failing you. But here's the good news. It doesn't have to be that way. With the right prepping hacks, you can stretch that tiny survival window into 2, 3, even 4 weeks of safe food. No fancy generators, no $1,000 equipment, just smart, practical tricks that anyone can set up right now in any home, big or small. So think of this video as your cold storage survival playbook. By the end, you'll know 10 proven strategies to keep your food fresh long after everyone else's is rotting. And trust me, when the grid goes dark, this knowledge isn't just nice to have, it's survival. Tip number 1, freeze first, ask questions later. When most people think of their freezer, they imagine it as a place to stash frozen pizza or maybe some ice cream. But if you're prepping for a blackout, you need to start seeing your freezer as your number 1 cold battery. Here's the golden rule. Never leave your freezer half empty. Empty space is wasted space and wasted cold. Instead, fill every single gap with frozen water bottles, milk jugs, or even heavy-duty Ziploc bags filled with water. Why? 2 reasons. First, they act as ice blocks, holding the cold in your freezer much longer once the power goes out. Second, once they thaw, you've got clean, drinkable water in containers that are easy to pour or carry. That's not just efficiency, that's survival multitasking. Here's the science behind it. A full freezer maintains its temperature roughly twice as long as an empty one. Think of it like packing a cooler for a camping trip. The more ice you've got inside, the slower everything warms up. That same principle applies here. Frozen water isn't just filler, it's insurance. And here's where most people go wrong. They think, well, I'll just fill it when the power goes out. Wrong move. By the time you're scrambling, it's already too late. You can't freeze water in a dead freezer. That's why this has to be a prepped habit, not a panic move. Keep those bottles or jugs in there at all times. Rotate them occasionally so they're fresh, but otherwise let them do their job, quietly guarding your cold chain. Bonus hack. Freeze them in different sizes. Gallon jugs for bulk cold storage, smaller bottles to wedge into gaps or move into a fridge or cooler later. That way, you've got flexible cold packs ready for every situation. Think of your freezer like a vault. The tighter and fuller you pack it with frozen water, the more time you buy when the grid goes dark. And that extra time, that could mean the difference between tossing hundreds of dollars worth of groceries and keeping your family fed through a week-long outage. Tip number 2, supercharge your cooler game. Now let's talk about your cooler. Most people think of coolers as something you drag to a picnic or the beach, but in a blackout, a cooler becomes your mobile refrigerator, and if you prep it right, it can outperform your dead fridge by days. Here's how you supercharge it. First, line the inside with reflective insulation. Think those shiny emergency blankets or foil-backed bubble wrap. This trick bounces cold back inside instead of letting it leak out through thin plastic walls. Suddenly, your $20 cooler behaves more like a professional-grade cold box. Second, forget plain ice. Instead, use frozen saltwater packs. Why salt water? Because salt lowers the freezing point, which means those packs stay colder for longer than plain frozen water. It's the same principle that keeps ice cream from melting when you churn it with rock salt. Saltwater packs are basically cold batteries on steroids. Third, rotate items strategically. Don't toss everything in and hope for the best. Place the most perishable items like meat and dairy closest to your cold packs. Keep sturdier foods like root vegetables or condiments toward the outer edges. Every time you open the lid, you're letting precious cold escape, so you want your priorities positioned for quick grabs. And here's the game changer. Pre-chill your cooler. Most people don't think of this, but if you know a storm or outage is coming, pack your cooler with ice or frozen bottles the night before. Let the walls absorb that cold. Then, when the power cuts, your cooler isn't starting at room temperature, it's already a cold fortress, ready to protect what's inside. Remember, in a blackout, your fridge is on borrowed time. But a supercharged cooler? That buys you days. Days to stretch your food supply, days to keep your family fed, and days to avoid the panic of spoiled groceries. So don't think of your cooler as camping gear anymore. Think of it as your blackout backup fridge, one that you've upgraded with insulation, saltwater packs, and smart organization. The difference between doing this and not doing it? About a week's worth of food security. Tip number 3, the ice chest hack. Now here's a game changer most people don't think about. The ice chest hack. Forget relying only on your regular fridge and freezer when the power goes down. Instead, you dedicate one heavy-duty cooler, ideally a deep freeze model, not your flimsy beach day cooler, to act as your emergency refrigerator during blackouts. Here's how it works. The moment your power blinks off, you don't just sit there waiting for the fridge to warm up. You transfer your most perishable, high-priority items into this dedicated ice chest. We're talking about meat, dairy, eggs, or anything else you absolutely want to stretch for days, not hours. Because this cooler isn't being opened 10 times a day by kids looking for snacks, the temperature inside stays far more stable. Now here's where the prep work comes in. You don't just stash this cooler empty in your garage and hope for the best. Beforehand, you load it with pre-frozen gel packs, bottles of salt water, which stays colder longer than regular water, or even simple frozen jugs. These frozen anchors create a solid cold base that can keep temps safe for up to a week, sometimes longer. With the right layering and minimal opening, people have stretched this method out to 7 to 10 days of safe food storage. And the beauty of this hack is flexibility. If the outage drags on, you can rotate frozen packs from another freezer, use block ice from neighbors, or even make your own ice with solar-powered generators if you've got that setup. You're essentially creating a secondary fridge that buys you days, sometimes weeks of buffer time. This isn't just about survival either. It's about peace of mind. When everyone else is panicking and throwing spoiled groceries in the trash, you'll still be cracking cold eggs and grilling fresh meat, all because you had one insulated workhorse ready to go. Tip number 4, layering and thermal barriers. Here's a little physics lesson with a huge prepper payoff. Cold food loves company. When you pack food tightly together, it creates a kind of thermal mass, meaning it takes longer for the entire group to warm up. That's why layering and thermal barriers can make or break your blackout food strategy. The trick here is to treat your fridge, freezer, or cooler like a fortress. You don't just toss things in randomly and hope for the best. You create zones and layers. For example, raw meat and fish go on the bottom, frozen bottles or packs form a cold base, and dairy or produce sit snugly in the middle. The tighter you pack it, the longer it all stays cold, because less warm air is able to sneak in between items. But it doesn't stop there. Think about insulation. Every layer you add between your food and the outside environment buys you more time. Towels, old blankets, reflective emergency blankets, even simple cardboard sheets, they all act as shields. Each layer slows down the transfer of heat. It's like putting your fridge inside a winter jacket. And don't underestimate reflective barriers. A shiny survival blanket wrapped around your cooler or fridge door works like magic because it reflects heat away, keeping cold in. Stack these with towels or foam panels, and suddenly your perishables are sitting inside a multi-layered cold bunker. Another underrated part? The no-peek rule. Every time you crack open a fridge or cooler, you let in a blast of warm air. But if you've set up layers and barriers properly, you don't need to rummage around. Organize beforehand so essentials are easy to grab, minimizing how long the door stays open. This system is simple, cheap, and ridiculously effective. You're not reinventing the wheel, you're just making sure your cold food has allies. With smart layering and thermal barriers, you're stretching the clock on spoilage by days. In a long blackout, those extra days can make all the difference. Tip number 5, dry ice and CO2 advantage. Dry ice isn't just for spooky Halloween parties and fog machines. In a blackout, it's basically your best friend. Why? because a single block of dry ice can do what regular ice struggles with. It keeps things frozen, not just cold for days at a time. Here's the magic. Dry ice is literally frozen carbon dioxide. Instead of melting into water like normal ice, it sublimates, meaning it turns straight from solid to gas. That's a huge win for you because it doesn't leave behind a puddle that soaks your food. Instead, it creates a super chilled, dry environment that holds everything at safe temperatures. In fact, just 10 pounds of dry ice can keep a packed cooler frozen for 24 to 48 hours, sometimes longer if you're layering smart. But the real secret weapon? The gas itself. As dry ice evaporates, it fills the cooler or freezer space with carbon dioxide. That heavy gas pushes oxygen out, which slows spoilage, mold growth, and bacteria. You're not just keeping things cold, you're creating a protective atmosphere that helps food last even longer. Think of it as a 2-in-1 preservation system. Freezing power plus an invisible shield. Now, a couple of tips. Always place dry ice on top of the food in your cooler or freezer. Cold air sinks, so it will cascade downward and keep everything evenly frozen. Wrap it in newspaper or cardboard to slow down sublimation, and never handle it with bare hands unless you enjoy frostbite. Ventilation also matters. Don't lock yourself in a small sealed room with it because CO2 buildup can be dangerous. And here's a pro prepper hack. If you know a blackout is coming, stash a block of dry ice in your main freezer. Not only will it extend the frozen life of everything inside, but it will also buy you critical time before you have to start transferring items into your survival cooler setup. Dry ice isn't something most households keep on hand daily, but many grocery stores and ice suppliers sell it by the pound. Keep it in your playbook because when everyone else's freezer is turning into a swampy disaster, you'll still be pulling out rock-solid steaks and frozen vegetables. Tip number 6. Cook, dehydrate, or can before it spoils. Here's the mindset shift that separates casual food storage from serious prepping. Don't wait for food to spoil before you act. If you know the power's going to be out for more than a day or two, it's time to go proactive. Think of it this way. You either preserve your food now or you lose it later. Simple as that. Start with meats and dairy, the items most likely to spoil first. Instead of letting raw chicken or beef sit in a warming fridge, cook it right away. Grilled, baked, or stewed meats will last longer, even without refrigeration, and they can be eaten cold later if needed. Milk? Boil it. Boiled milk stretches its usable life by days compared to raw. Eggs? Hard boil them, and suddenly you've got a protein source that's safe outside the fridge for several days. Next up, dehydration. Fruits, veggies, even herbs. If you've got a dehydrator or just a good sunny day, you can dry them out and buy yourself weeks of storage time. Dried apple slices, banana chips, or jerky not only last longer, they take up less space. And then there's canning. If you've already dipped into the prepper lifestyle, pressure canning or water bath canning is a lifesaver. That chicken you were worried about? Once canned, it's shelf-stable for months. Same with soups, beans, and even some vegetables. You're essentially converting perishable groceries into pantry powerhouses. The key here is urgency. A lot of people in blackouts fall into the trap of, let's just wait and see. By the time they realize the outage is lasting longer than expected, half their fridge has already gone bad. Don't be that person. Day one is your window to act. Fire up the grill, get the pots boiling, start dehydrating, and line up jars for canning. The beauty of this strategy is that even if the lights come back on sooner than expected, you haven't wasted effort. You've simply turned fresh food into shelf-stable food, which saves money and time down the road. Either way, you win. So remember, in blackout prepping, preservation beats hesitation. Cook it, dry it, can it, do whatever it takes. Because once it spoils, there's no going back. Tip number 7, strategic food choices. Here's the hard truth about blackouts. You can't save everything. No matter how many coolers, frozen packs, or hacks you've got lined up, at some point, you'll have to prioritize. And that's where smart prepping becomes less about saving all the groceries and more about saving the right groceries. Think about it. Do you really need to burn through your limited ice and cooler space trying to keep a head of lettuce crisp? Spoiler alert, lettuce wilts in hours no matter what you do. Same with cucumbers, fresh herbs, or that bag of mixed salad greens you bought on sale. Those foods are low calorie, low value, and short-lived. If they go bad, the impact on your long-term survival is pretty minimal. Now contrast that with high-value items. proteins, fats, and dairy. Meats, cheeses, milk, butter, yogurt, these are dense calorie sources, full of nutrition, and much harder to replace if they spoil. They're also versatile. A pound of cooked chicken can stretch across several meals, while a block of cheese adds protein and fat to otherwise plain staples like rice or beans. Losing these is a real hit. So here's the strategy. During an outage, triage your food like a battlefield medic. Ask yourself, which items keep me fueled the longest, store the best once cooked, or provide the biggest nutritional punch? Those go straight into your coolest cooler, surrounded by ice packs or dry ice. Everything else gets shifted down the priority list. Another smart move is grouping. Keep your perishables together, but don't let lower priority items steal prime real estate from your proteins. If something like lettuce spoils, fine. It's better than losing that gallon of milk you could have boiled and stretched for several days. This mindset also helps reduce stress. Instead of panicking over losing everything, you take control by choosing what's worth saving. That shift in perspective means you come out of the blackout with your most important foods intact, not wasting resources on items that were destined to fail anyway. Bottom line, ice and cooler space are currency in a blackout. Spend them wisely. Tip number 8, cool underground or submerge in water. Sometimes the best hacks aren't high-tech, they're downright ancient. Long before refrigerators existed, people knew how to keep food cold using nothing more than the ground beneath their feet and the streams around their homes. And in a blackout, those old-school tricks can still work wonders. Let's start with underground storage. Ever notice how a basement feels cool even on a scorching summer day? That's because the earth just a few feet down holds a steady temperature, usually between 50 and 55 degrees Fahrenheit in many regions. It's not freezing, but it's much cooler than surface air that might be 85 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit during a blackout. Burying sealed containers or stashing food in an insulated waterproof box underground taps into that natural refrigeration. It slows spoilage dramatically and buys you precious days, sometimes even a week or more. Now, don't just toss food in a hole. Use sturdy containers like plastic bins, sealed buckets, or even water bricks to keep critters, dirt, and moisture out. A quick and dirty version? Dig a shallow trench, place your sealed container inside, cover it with a tarp, and bury it under a couple of feet of soil. That thermal buffer keeps the contents cooler than anything left sitting in your warm kitchen. Then there's water. Running streams, ponds, or even deep wells naturally stay cooler than the air, especially in shaded areas. By submerging sealed food containers, think mason jars, watertight bins, or even heavy-duty Ziploc bags inside buckets, you can use that natural cold to extend freshness. Just make sure everything is tightly sealed, because the last thing you want is bacteria from the water creeping into your food. Even if you don't have a stream, a shaded rain barrel or a large tub of water in your yard or balcony can work as a mini thermal sink. Water resists temperature change better than air, so placing sealed perishables inside keeps them cooler for longer. The genius of these hacks is that they don't require electricity, fancy gear, or even much prep time. They rely on physics and the natural environment, which, let's face it, is the same system humanity used for centuries before fridges ever existed. So if your coolers are maxed out and the blackout drags on, look down. The ground and water around you might be the backup fridge you never knew you had. Tip number 9, portable solar plus 12-volt fridge freezers. Now let's talk about the big leagues of blackout prepping. Portable solar power paired with a 12-volt fridge freezer. This is the upgrade that takes you from just hanging on during an outage to living almost normally while everyone else is scrambling. Why 12-volt fridges specifically? Because they're designed to sip power instead of guzzle it. Unlike your home refrigerator that pulls hundreds of watts just to hum along, a quality 12-volt fridge freezer, like the kind used in RVs or off-grid setups, can run on as little as 40 to 60 watts. That means it's perfectly matched to portable solar panels and a decent solar generator or power station. Here's how it works. You set up a foldable solar panel on your balcony, patio, or even out a window. That panel feeds into your portable power station, which acts like a battery bank. Your 12-volt fridge plugs into that battery, and as long as the sun shines, it just keeps on cycling. Even on cloudy days, the battery gives you backup hours to coast through the night until the next sunrise. The beauty here isn't just about keeping milk cold or ice cream frozen, it's about independence. While everyone else is racing to the store for bags of ice, you're running your own tiny off-grid cold chain system. Proteins stay frozen, dairy stays safe, and you don't have to keep moving food between coolers and melting ice packs. Yes, it's an investment. No sugarcoating that. A good portable solar generator plus panels and a fridge isn't pocket change. But for serious preppers, this is the gold standard. It pays off the very first time a blackout drags on for days or weeks. Instead of eating through your supplies in a panic, you stretch them comfortably while the sun powers your prep. And here's the kicker. This setup doesn't just serve you in blackouts. Camping trips, road travel, tailgating, even day-to-day use in small apartments where you need extra freezer space, your 12-volt fridge freezer pulls double duty. It's not just an emergency tool, it's a lifestyle upgrade. So if you're thinking long-term, skip the ice run and go solar. It's the closest thing to making your fridge blackout-proof. Tip number 10, the rotation mindset. Here's the final secret most people miss. Cold storage isn't about panic, it's about practice. The worst time to figure out how to stretch your freezer life is when the lights just went out and you're fumbling with melting ice. That's where the rotation mindset comes in. Think of your freezer not as a static box, but as a constantly moving system. Every time you use frozen water jugs to keep food cold, replace them with fresh ones immediately. That way, you always have a wall of ice ready to ride out the first hours of a blackout. It's not about filling it once, it's about keeping it full and fresh. The same goes for emergency-only meals. Instead of waiting until the power's out to wonder what's safe to eat, set aside a small section of your freezer for blackout rations. Pre-cooked casseroles, vacuum-sealed meats, or even ready-to-heat soups. Rotate them in and out just like your pantry goods. Cook and eat one, then replace it. That way, your emergency stash is never expired, never freezer burned, and always ready to go. This mindset does two big things. First, it removes panic. When the power cuts, you already know what's in your freezer, where it is, and how you'll use it. Second, it stretches your resilience. Instead of scrambling to cook everything at once, you've got layers of frozen backups that are always within their safe window. And here's the beauty. Rotation doesn't take extra space. You don't need a second freezer or more square footage. You're just managing what you already have smarter. Even small apartments can build this habit without losing a single inch of living space. If you build a habit of rotating ice packs, frozen meals, and blackout-ready jugs into your weekly routine, then the next time a storm or grid failure hits, you're not caught off guard. You're running the playbook you've practiced all year. At the end of the day, a power outage doesn't have to turn your fridge into a ticking time bomb. Losing electricity doesn't automatically mean you're losing your food, not if you've got the right systems in place. With a little foresight and some surprisingly simple hacks, you can flip the script. Instead of staring at spoiled groceries and melted freezers, you'll be stretching days into weeks of safe, secure food. Now here's the real question. What's your number one blackout food-saving hack? Maybe it's something we covered today. Maybe it's something totally unique you figured out for yourself. Drop it down in the comments because the next time the lights go out, your idea could be the one that saves somebody else's food stash. And hey, if this gave you even one new trick to try, don't just keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share this with a friend or neighbor who thinks their fridge can't survive a power cut, and make sure you're subscribed so you never miss the next survival edge.